if you look at trends, the time Democrats are able to become politically stronger is when they act more hawkish, not dovish. I think that's absolutely true. So I have this chapter in the 50s, again, on the origins of the missile gap debate and how that was really important to taking on Eisenhower and all the advantage that had been lost in 52. That's a hawkish move. It wasn't based on truth. It was based on a false argument. In the 70s, Henry Scoop Jackson and neoconservatives criticized détente. That's a central political kind of battle with Nixon and Ford, saying the Republicans are too dovish and they're engaging in arms negotiations and going to China, and we're the ones who kind of carry on the tradition of FDR. So in general, if you're going to bet, it's very hard to bet on a Democrat not taking that position. There are moments. The other moment I do think we forget about is the first part of Reagan's presidency, where obviously Reagan's going to win re-election, but in that first term, what was remarkable in the archives is how much pressure Reagan is facing from advisors to back down a bit from the very hawkish position he took in the first few years, and he had done throughout the 1970s. The pressure comes from a lot of sources, from House Democrats who are really putting restrictions and pushing back against things like Central America. Public opinion clearly is not in favor of intervention in Central America. There's no polls showing Americans want Reagan to go there. The international freeze movement, which we kind of, I think, remember as a quirky, fringe group, wasn't at all. It was an international group that was drawing millions of people, and the administration is very cognizant of it. And they're talking about in 82 and 83, we need to respond. We have to show how we're the peace party too. And we're going to suffer in the polls, advisors are saying. SDI is in part a response to the nuclear freeze movement. This is how we will achieve peace. And a lot of that, I think, helps explain some of Reagan's shift by 83 and 84. There's other reasons, such as the confrontation over the Korean Airlines and the real dangers that emerged. But clearly, political pressures moved Reagan in another direction. And Democrats were pretty kind of forthright about attacking that. And obviously, Reagan's term ends very differently. He ends not as the hawk, but as the dove. And he kind of takes the initiative on the breakthrough with Gorbachev, and that has now become his legacy, much more than the evil empire speech, and much more than kind of the abandonment of détente, which is how he came into office. So there are some examples, but in general, I do think they move. It says at least in rhetoric, the American public likes that hawkish rhetoric. I'm not sure in practice. I mean, I think there was a notion that after the 70s we became this Rambo country, and kind of every textbook chapter on America in the 80s uses that movie to capture how Americans thought, but I don't think that's true. I mean, we didn't have a draft. We didn't have a lot of support for vastly building up kind of a huge military presence around the world. And I think presidents, including President Bush too, have struggled with this. President Bush I certainly did. He circumscribed Operation Desert Storm. He was very clear America would not support kind of rebuilding another country. He goes to Congress for a resolution of support, in part because James Baker says, you need to do this or else Congress is going to abandon you. It's not a declaration of war, but it's still a decision over Vice President Cheney, who said just ignore them. So I do think the public pressure outside of the rhetoric actually goes both ways.